my friends, wherever you are. Welcome to Red Ice Radio. This is our weekly show here on bbsradio.com, and you can hear us every Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time or 9 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. And this is Henrik Palmgren, your host and editor of the Red Ice website. That's the red-ice.net website. And I'm coming to you live from the west coast of Sweden. I hope you tuned in last week and heard the first part of our series that I'm honored to be able to continue today with Michael Tsarion. This is part 2 of our 6-part series that we are doing. And today we will also continue with our contest. And last week, Petri Andelin from Västerås in Sweden called in during the end of the show with the correct answer. So congratulations to Petri. And he chose the Atlantis Alien Visitation and Genetic Manipulation DVD. And we still have 5 DVDs left from Michael Tsarion's Origins and Oracle series to hand out. So participate today in the contest and call us in with the correct answer to Michael's question, and you will be able to pick one of those 5 remaining DVDs. And we can give out the number right now also, so you'll be ready when it's time. And the number you should call is 1-877-876-5227. And remember, if you are calling us from outside the US, just add 001 in front of that number. And again, that number is 1-877-876-5227. And we'll be giving out the number again later on. So and you can always find the details and the numbers on either bbsradio.com, or if you follow the links to today's program from my site, red-ice.net. Okay, so stay tuned. The contest is coming up. But hey, let's bring Michael on now so we can get this show on the road. Hey, son, Michael, and welcome back to the program, my friend.
Hey, son, Henrik, nice to be back.
Yeah, great. And, we said that we should, to dive right into where we left off last time. And I think you were in the middle of a point, to get the show on the road. Maybe you like to, continue where you left off.
All I was saying, I think it was actually just a minor point, but it was thematic in nature because of it was the first show we were doing. It was really good, just in case people are joining us or listening to the archive later.
Yeah.
I was trying to put together a couple of themes. I mean, obviously the biggest theme, is the concept that we're talking about the origin of secret society symbolisms, the actual origin of the Bible and Judaism and all of these concepts leading back to Egypt, not in a vague way, but in a very specific way to the 18th dynasty of Egypt.
Yeah.
That's the big theme, the overarching thing. But, I was introducing other themes, and basically just the idea, I think that, we're living in a world of contradiction and confusion.
Yeah.
In almost every conceivable area of human studies. But there's one thing that the human mind cannot argue around, and that is that the human brain or the human mind did not create nature. We're seeking God, we're seeking all of these things in order to, through projection of the human ego.
Yeah.
We create gods, we create goddesses. But the whole idea is that there is outside of us this perfect universe, which represents the perfect universe inside of ourselves. And there it is in all its perfection, not created, not plugged in, and not, formed from consciousness.
Yeah.
The trees, the mountains, the clouds, the oceans, they don't possess the kind of consciousness that we have, and yet there they are in perfect balance. So the point I was leaving off with last week was that it's very important for us to stay very grounded in reality and realize that the natural order is not a man-made invention, but that God is. People can literally go and stand in temples in Egypt where the concept of God began. Now, I know this is a very fugitive, and radical concept to those people who have who maybe are part of a religious culture.
Yeah.
But we've got to understand that if you are part of modern religion today, the tendency is for you to be very narrow-minded,
Yeah.
just to take things for granted and to accept what you have been told by your authorities. It probably hasn't dawned on people that are part of churches and part of religion that that these things are relatively new. The
Yeah.
concepts are put before us. The Bible itself has been translated endlessly. It bears very little resemblance to the original, authorship.
Yeah.
The Dead Sea Scrolls proved that. When the Dead
Yeah.
Sea Scrolls came along, they were suppressed.
Yeah.
The Vatican was in terrible fear about what the Dead Sea Scrolls were going to show, and rightly so, because the Dead Sea Scrolls contradicted almost every basic tenet of official Christianity. So from within even in the academia, from within even in theological studies, there's been enormous contradiction.
Yeah.
So the point I was making last week is that simply we have to understand that these things that we call gods and temples and priestarchies, these things are concoctions of men. When we're talking about Akhenaton, any great modern demagogue, we have to understand that these individuals are very political, but they're also very theological.
Yeah.
Because there's a double-headed eagle situation here. We have theology on one side, and we have monarchy or autocracy on another side.
Yeah.
But the point that I was going to make last week is that the damaging thing is that whenever you accept that there is a God that is remote from you, because when we're talking monotheism, specifically monotheism, and all the monotheistic religions that are dominant in the world today, the central precept is that God force is very remote from you. It's isolated, it's alienated, and that you are basically a sinner at the bottom end of the ladder.
Yeah.
And therefore, the fact that there's a gap between you and the intelligence that created you, therefore now you need a series of mediators, or you need a figure between you see.
Yeah.
Now comes the rising of the priestarchy.
Yeah.
You see, a single Moses or a single Akhenaton wandering the desert somewhere is no big threat to anybody. These individuals, how do they gain their power?
Yeah.
Most people live and never even see the Pharaoh. They don't even see the king. They don't meet the Archbishop of Canterbury. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So most people are never going to see the Pope or never have a conversation with the Pope.
Exactly.
What is it that gives this incredible power of these people? It's because of the idea that we buy into.
Yeah.
It's not their physical presence in our house or in our street. This is like I've been saying, that it's a war on consciousness.
Yeah.
And therefore, when you have this concept of religion, we have to be very, on guard, because the early natural pagan philosophies did not separate you from your source.
Yeah.
In fact, they would have seen that as a very, very terrible sickness, because we learned from nature in ancient times, and that was very, 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 pragmatic. That was a thing that was very much in your face.
Yeah.
It wasn't that matter was matter. No, matter was spirit. The ancients couldn't understand the concept of spirit being trapped in matter because they saw matter is infused with spirit. There is no difference between spirit and matter. It's all one. It's all one spiritual energy, one animistic living organism.
Exactly.
And therefore you didn't really need a mediator between you and that force. You may have had guiding lights. You may have models of great men who had gone ahead of you. But there was no such thing as a priestarchy which was, there to sort of translate whatever this great brooding God in the sky is saying, and then they're going to translate it through a series of hierarchies to you, the person who's completely removed and on your knees and in fear. So that was the basic point, is that we're dealing with critiques of religion and critiques of the institutions of religion.
Yeah.
We're not just, sort of in a sort of a rebellious mode for no reason. We're talking about something here that's an incredible disease that separates human beings from their own light, from their own power, and that is where our philosophical stance comes from. Not just punks throwing out, mudslinging at religion and the people of religion or the edifices of religion for no reason. We have strict philosophical, theological, ideological opposition here. We're talking from a very intellectual status. We're talking about the poison that tries to drug reason and drugs the human libido, drugs human desire, and puts all of these hierarchies in between us and our creative force. This is why we take exemption to the authorities that exist today.
Yeah, and I mean, we can translate this, lay it over on top right of our most, modern God, which is money, of course, and how economics works. Because, here too we have a set of, as you say, mediators who translates, what economy is and how it works and all this stuff. And we just, give that power away and give that power up and just let someone else translate it. So I guess that, this kind of philosophy that you're describing here obviously have worked in the past and still is working today.
And that's right. And therefore, when you know that you're raped of your own sovereign power and your own inherent, the sovereign, the real thing, the platinum, the gold, and the silver type of power that you have within your own soul, when you don't have that, well, then you'll accept lead, you'll accept the lower form. And money provides that. It's an extension of human will to power. And what you will do, now that you've accepted that there's a master-slave dichotomy, now that you accept that there is a hierarchy, you go, well, look, if I can just get one level higher up than I am, can you just promote me to a higher part of the pyramid, a higher part of the hierarchy? Then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
I can't step out of that hierarchy because I'm afraid to be alone. I'm afraid to be an outlaw. I'm afraid to stand. I have no independence.
Yeah.
I use the word independence. Well, hell, the whole of America uses the word independence and individuality, and yet it's never to be seen. It's never to be seen on the social level. It's not to be seen on the governmental level. It's a completely misuse of a word because nobody has it. So what we do is we say we can't leave the fold. We don't want to leave the city lights, that comfort zone, that consensus trance. So I'll tell you what, I will be happy. I'm pretty unhappy with the cell that I'm occupying. So could you give me a few cushions?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's bizarre.
So this is what we do. So everyone that you see, they're all prisoners.
Yeah.
They're all in a cage, but some have, cages of gold, and some have cages of iron.
Yeah.
And this is how also then the world system works. Whenever you have a disgruntled person or an individual who's maybe smart enough to not like what they see, well, the world system often says, well, okay, we understand you're rebellious. Guess what? We'll just promote you.
Yeah.
Instead of being the private, we'll make you a major.
Yeah.
How's that? And most people go, okay.
We'll make you enjoy what you're doing, so...
Pardon?
Yeah, we'll make you enjoy what you're doing, your misery, and we'll drag you
give you
further.
Authority over the other ones lower than you. And this is what the priests and some of the philosophers and many of the politicians are doing. People say, why do they never break ranks? Why does nothing change?
Yeah.
Well, because these individuals probably at one time did see through the matrix. People like Winston Churchill are a perfect example. That guy originally wrote exposing secret societies and was very, very into the works of Nesta Webster and other people who were exposing the world conspiracy. Then he turned around and started serving it. Why?
Really?
Because he knew if you're not going to beat it, you might as well join it. So the concept of the hierarchy is we also have to realize that there are people who know better, but then they don't do better because they accept, another level of dominion given to them by the beast. And this is also, something to look out for.
Because I remember, there are several people, I remember Alan Greenspan reading an article about him, and he also, was against certain types of, okay, I go back to economy again, but how things are run in that department, and obviously he now became a shill of the, the New World Order, basically, so.
Yes, and there's many examples. Milton Friedman is another one. There's a lot of different examples of this, of people who go through their career. I mean, you can basically say a lot of people on the socialist side, the extreme left, because, of course, on paper, the extreme left are meant to be against corporations, meant to be against, injustice and so on.
Yeah.
And yet, they turn out to, be great shills of the New World Order.
Yeah.
So they go so far, Marxists are exactly like this. If you talk to the average Marxist, especially, say, somebody from Latin America, like a Cuban, or what sounds like a genuine Marxist, you can't help agreeing with a lot of the stuff they're talking about because they do seem on the surface to be talking about the rights of man and the underprivileged, you see. And this can be very hypnotic until you realize that, wait a minute, these people are just pulling rank again.
Yeah.
They just want a little bit further power up the pyramid. We expect great change.
Yeah.
Especially in the last 30 years, of course, it's kind of a done deal now. But in the last 30 years, a lot of people have been buying into this socialistic, sort of communistic lie almost, and believing it because it sounds good to the ear.
Exactly.
We promote these politicians, we promote these local governors that seem to have this kind of liberal socialistic philosophy because it sounds good. And then finally, nothing's happening good at all. In fact, we find out it can even be worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a whole dynamic there. People have to realize that the real answers are not to be found within the political pigsty that these hidden masters have created for us is a very, very key thing.
But people are so attached to their philosophy in that sense. I mean, I have several examples myself when I encounter people who lean towards. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but they're leaning towards the left, and as soon as I begin to expose some of the stuff that is the history of how the communists came about and who financed Lenin and all this stuff and the revolution over in Soviet Union, and it's always like I'm not allowed to touch on those subjects or areas because they're almost sacred. It's a religion basically for them.
Well, isn't that what we just said a few minutes ago about the narrow-mindedness of people who belong?
Yeah.
The moment that you belong to something, or you identify with something, you basically closed off your mind. And there you go. I mean, communist Russia, the bombs and the empty shells of planes were all, put there by Arm & Hammer and the Zionists of America.
Yeah.
They were put there. They claim to be a communist country, yet John D. Rockefeller and the Rockefeller brothers were giving standing ovations in Moscow's first bank. The first bank of Moscow is a Rockefeller bank.
Yeah.
And when Rockefeller used to drive up to that once a year, he used to go and visit, there'd be a standing ovation. The streets, people would come out of their houses and give him a standing ovation and give him applause. This is known. This is a fact.
Yeah.
Then we'd find out that the whole communist lie has been funded from New York. This has been proven by people. It's irrefutable.
Yeah.
So there's a contradiction, and I can point out several more. In fact, if we have a few minutes, like 5 minutes.
Sure, go ahead.
It's very important to point out these contradictions. Let me give you one. I got about 5 of them that I know off the top of my head. One is that, for instance, like we've been saying or be hinting at other shows, that those people who call themselves Jews today, completely irrationally, contradictorily, imagine that they actually are descendants of people from the Holy Land.
Yeah.
Even though there's not a shred of evidence for that fact. Since we know, even Jewish rabbis are very, very, the ones who know their history, know full well that 80% or more of the Jews that are living today are actually from the Ashkenaz Jews of the Caspian Sea, and therefore were a Mongolian Turkish stock. There's no connection whatsoever to what they call the Judaism of the Holy Land, and are in fact religious converts. And even the 30%, the 20% left over of so-called Sephardic Jews, who they're the ones who always make the big statement that they are, connected to the original tribe of Benjamin. That's all mostly, wishful thinking.
Yeah.
That group has difficulty tracing themselves back further than the 17th century. There's almost no Jewish family who can actually do it. In fact, but of course in their head, it's a different story.
Yeah.
We have Jewish people today thinking that the state of Israel is really something, that they inherited from the past. That's contradiction number 1. I can think of another one. There was, if people are taking notes, they better write this stuff down because they're pretty heavy. One is that remember the Protestant takeover of England?
Yeah, sure.
The famous Battle of the Boyne, the whole concept of King William of Orange.
Yeah.
Fighting the Stuarts. How many people realize that in this great battle, which Protestantism is now going to become, the state religion, and King William of Orange of the House of Hanover from Holland coming to fight the evil Catholic Stuart dynasty. And they actually do defeat James Stuart, James II. But how many people have told you, how many teachers have told you that the man in the world who had the most Stuart blood was William himself?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
William of Orange, the conqueror of the Stuarts, had more Stuart blood in him than James Stuart II. In fact, his wife, and that's Mary II, was the daughter of James Stuart, the man they were fighting.
Okay, I did not know
More than that.
Yeah.
And the Stuarts, of course, are connected to the Catholic Vatican. That's what they're fighting for. The Vatican. They're Catholic.
Yeah.
But the Vatican, Henrik, and the William of Orange of Hanover have the same bank accounts in the same bank. It's the Bank of Belgium. Both of them have their finances in the same bank. The same bank funded both sides in the famous so-called Glorious Revolution in England.
Yeah.
We could have a whole hour show just about the contradiction of that. But why is it that on paper, to this day, people in Northern Ireland will march on the 12th of July, which has just gone past one day. One day ago was 12th of July, and in that city, there are people marching, as they do in Holland, because they believe that the Protestants dominated, the Stuarts. And yet, both groups were of the same family, and the battles that they engaged in were purely ritualistic. What a contradiction.
Yeah.
Another contradiction.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
The British people, of course, fought the Germans in 2 world wars, no less. Yet, they're both from the same Anglo-Saxon race. Germans and Britain couldn't be closer connected racially. More than that, in the Second World War, that was the time of the Windsors, the Royal Windsors.
Yeah.
The Windsor family are Germanic. They're from Saxe-Coburg. The Queen's cousin was the Kaiser.
Yes.
So Britain, in fact, her own father could barely speak a word of English. Okay, this is Elizabeth, the Queen now.
Yeah.
Her grandfather was called George the Fifth, for those who don't know, right? His 2 fathers were insane. They were completely mad. They had to be locked up. But George the Fifth could hardly speak a word of English. He was German. And Elizabeth's own father, remember?
Yeah.
George the Sixth. He took over from Edward the Seventh when Edward the Seventh, remember the famous abdication when he married the Catholic Mrs. Simpson from America?
No, remind me. What was this?
Well, it's not important, but
okay.
The whole point is that this family, George the Sixth and Queen Elizabeth the First and their grandfathers, were of the House of Saxe-Coburg, which is resident in Germany, Belgium, and Holland.
Yeah.
Yet England, which is an Anglo-Saxon race, is suddenly in 2 world wars with Germany, their cousins, their racial cousins.
Yeah.
And the royal family of England is German.
Yeah.
What is mad wrong with this picture? And then worse, coming from an Irish point of view, here's another incredible, sick contradiction. Though the English had persecuted the Irish for centuries, right, reducing their population, to a fragment, I believe that the famine was artificially created. So, we have 2 million people dying of starvation out of 8 million. 2 million others had to immigrate because of the poverty.
Yeah.
Ireland loses 4 million people to a famine.
Yeah.
They'd already been put through the most severe penal laws that ever you could imagine existed in Europe.
Yeah.
We have the famous Statutes of Kilkenny, which oppressed them, which banned the whole of Celtic culture. In future shows, we're going to go into that when we talk more on the Irish connection here.
Yeah.
But the Statutes of Kilkenny were to repress the Celtic culture, right? They literally banned any Celtic culture. The English taxed the air. They took away the Irish most basic rights, and they decimated the population. They let loose people like Cromwell, who killed thousands and thousands of people, and so on and so on and so on, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What do we find in the Second World War? The Irish are joining English battalions to go and fight Germany in the First and Second World War. The Irish have battalions like the Irish Guards.
Yeah.
What are we looking at here? Look at the insanity of human beings. And the Irish are going to fight with England against an enemy that's done Ireland no harm. Fighting for those who have decimated their country.
Yeah.
Okay? We get the picture of the human ignorance?
Oof, my God.
There was a few people who didn't, buy into that, like Errol Flynn. The idea is that he was a spy for the Germans and so on and so forth. So I'm not saying all Irish are implicated in this, but the mass of Irish people support their own destroyers against an enemy that had nothing to do with hurting them at all.
Yeah. So, I mean...
We come up more to date.
Yeah.
I got 2 more examples of this.
Yeah, please go ahead.
In Germany, the Nazis claimed that their chief enemy, because everyone says it was the Jews. No. Long before the Germans, the Nazi Party, ever start complaining about the Jews, and you can find this out if you read Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, his greatest adversary in the book, to his mind, was the German aristocracy. Okay, and anyone who studied the Second World War knows this, that he had a major peeve with the German aristocracy.
Yeah.
What do we see happening 5 minutes later after the German, becomes chancellor? He's in league with the German aristocracy. They go on a ship, and they actually sign a deal with Hitler that turned out to be the Night of the Long Knives, in which the aristocracy signed a deal with the Nazis saying that we will help you and fund you and promote you and give you what you want if you go around and kill all the enemies, kill all of our enemies. Like wipe out the leaders of the army, like people like Ernst Röhm, you see, and all these other adversaries. So in 5 minutes, we find that Hitler is in league with his aristocracy that he's been telling you for years he despises.
Yeah.
And he goes around killing people that you would imagine in an enormous slaughter that took place called the Night of the Long Knives. He's slaughtering people that actually you would think on paper would would be very much, he'd be for. He would have no threat against.
Yeah.
There's a massive looming contradiction.
There is.
We also find contradictions like the Nazis are meant to be super racists. Well, then, if they're super racists, what on earth are they doing allied to the Japanese and to the Indians? Did you know that the government of India, at the time of the rise of the Nazis, which was led at that time by President Bose, Prime Minister Bose of India, supported Adolf Hitler?
No, I didn't know.
They don't tell you this.
No.
The fact that Bose, Prime Minister Bose, was a regular guest of Adolf Hitler, and he was a Brahmin, and he was the Prime Minister of India, and he gave full Indian backing and support to Nazis. Nazis were going to India all the time to study the sacred books and the sacred ways.
Yeah.
We do know officially that Turkey was an ally of the Nazis, and we know that Japan was an ally of the Nazis. Well, then, wait a minute. How does that flow with the theory put forward in the world here, the Western world, that these guys are super racist?
It
you see, we got a contradiction there.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last contradiction, is the one that's very, very applicable to us now. We have the rise in America in the last couple of years, since George Bush has been in the White House, of the famous neocons, right?
Yeah.
It's not a new thing, but to the public eye it's new. These people are followers of the philosopher Leo Strauss.
Yeah.
So they're actually called Straussians, but people know them today as neocons. Okay, so on paper, the neocons have been supporting in the last lot of years, many books have been written about this, that they were the biggest supporters of Islamic extremists, people like the Taliban and the Mujahideen. The extreme right wing of America supported these extremists because, remember, when Russia was invading Afghanistan?
Yeah.
And people only have to remember the Rambo movies to see the image of the right wing American, military guy fighting with the Mujahideen. So people need to remember this, that the extreme right neocons, that's Wolfowitz and Rumsfeld and all of these people, were funding extremists, and even petitioned for the most radical extremist Islamic jihadist leaders to be released en masse from prisons all around the world. And that actually, in fact, happened, okay? And these extremist leaders all met up in Afghanistan and started their militia schools in Afghanistan, funded by American money. Okay, what happens tomorrow? What is happening now in America? The same neocons who are now spouting evangelist Christian ethics, since Bush has actually physically come on to the White House, are now supporting pro-Zionist Jewish movements, who are technically on paper against the jihadist Islamics. So just like I said about the William of Orange, hang on a minute, in 5 minutes in history, we find the same group from New York and Washington going out of their way to fund and promote and lionize extremist jihadists of Mujahideen and Taliban who rise up in Afghanistan and are now considered to be, falsely claimed to be this, new threat, this faux nemesis to democracy and all the rest of it. And then at home territory, there's a pushing through George Bush openly of a neocon philosophy, which is the church and evangelism, which of course is very pro-Zionist. I don't know if you know this in Europe, but it's very clear here to people. But then on paper, the Zionists and the Islamic are completely opposing one another. Contradiction.
These are points that you bring up here that, completely turns everything upside down. And it might be a good idea to, take a little break here and let people, contemplate this, and we can, do our little contest here again. Part 2. So, Do you want to give out the question, and I'll give the number afterwards?
And this is a good time to do it because it's a little bit more, I would say not more complicated, but a little trickier question than last week. This is about the famous stone of Bethel. Now, the stone of Bethel was in the Bible, and it's meant to be the stone upon which I believe it's Jacob sleeps. When Jacob falls asleep, he puts his head on the famous stone of Bethel and has this dream of the ladder going up to heaven, ascending, and so forth and so on. And this is a very famous stone that the British Israelite movement believe actually came to Ireland. And it's connected, to Jeremiah, who's meant to have brought this sacred stone. And this sacred stone is meant to be at Tara, or it's meant to have been the stone of the kings. But in my work, I actually have explained what the stone of Bethel is and even its location. So the question is, the stone of Bethel is in Ireland, but please tell us the exact location of this famous stone of Bethel? Where is it? Located in Ireland, and that is the question. And then there's a free DVD to those who get that question correct.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
Actual stone of Bethel.
Yeah. All right. Let me give out the numbers here for you to call, and I hope we have a few out there. And as always, I'll give the number first, and if we have no one calling in with the correct answer, we'll continue the contest, and it will be open, and you can send me a mail. But first, let me give out the number here. If you're calling from outside the US, remember to just add 001 in front of these numbers. So you call 1-877-876-5227. Or you can try another number, which is 530-876-3222. So if we have anyone out there, who feels up for it, give us a call, and we'll see if you can get a DVD from Michael Tsarion's Origins and Oracle series. So, okay, where do we continue this, Michael? Let's give people
I want to say an explanation of that also. It's kind of a trick question because there's a wrong answer to it. A lot of people will think they have the right answer because there's been other authors speculating on this famous stone of Bethel.
Yeah.
You might actually, come up with the wrong answer. There's a very specific right answer to this. And also the word Bethel is very interesting for people who want to know. Beth comes from the Hebrew Beth, B-E-T-H, and it means the house. It has several meanings. It's the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet, just like we have the letter B, A-B.
Yeah.
They have Aleph and Beth. And Beth, or pronounced B-E-T-H, Beth, is house. And El, of course, is God.
Yeah.
So house of God is what Bethel means. So the stone of Bethel is the stone that is, connected to the house of God. It's a very, very interesting concept.
Yeah, interesting.
But anyway, there's those contradictions. Why I brought them up is for two reasons. One is that they're incredible. You could write a whole book on just these contradictions of politics.
Yeah.
And the second reason is because I want people who are beginning or continuing their studies in this kind of alternative history movement, I want them to be extremely cognizant and aware of these contradictions. That's why I give those specific examples.
Yeah.
Because these are one of the other ways that you can prove to your fellow friends in conversation that there is something bizarre going on. Instead of asserting a point of view, because if you assert a point of view that's conspiratorial, of course then you're going to have these defenses. You were just talking about that a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
You tried yourself to bring these things up.
Yeah.
And therefore, it doesn't mean that you have to be totally silent. I've always said that you should always be very non-invasive. That means you should only bring up these kinds of controversial matters if you're being asked by somebody in public or one of your friends. Unless you're asked, don't say anything.
Of course.
And secondly, when you do start talking, one must be conversant with the facts and be eloquent in their delivery.
Yeah.
Then I think a sub-theme to that, a subcategory, is that there's also sort of a Socratic way to do it. And that is to not assert a point of view from your own self. Like, this is my belief system, because then your belief system comes up against somebody else's belief system, and then it's crazy.
Yeah.
What you do is you engage the other person in these kinds of contradictions. And you look through history as you're studying, and you notice these, and you write them down, and you bookmark them.
Yeah.
And then you find out, what's going on. And you find out, and maybe these contradictions don't have an immediate answer, but that's all right. Write them down, memorize them, because these contradictions have a great deal of power.
Yeah.
And then when you bring them up to other people, what you're doing is you're slowly unloosening the knots of their prejudice without actually beating them over the head, without trying to say, hey, I'm trying to get rid of your belief system so I can insert my belief system in the place of the one that you just have.
Yeah,
That's not going to work because people don't like to have that happen.
Yeah.
But all people are hungry for the mystery, and all people inwardly know that they've ingested a lie, that the world has ingested a lie, and that their children are delinquent and people are dying in the world and suffering and starving all through the world. People know inherently underneath their prejudices, they know that they have bought a lie, and that is why the world is in the jaded, dysfunctional, crazy state that it is.
Yeah.
I mean, even the most reactionary people right now in America are starting to understand that they've bought Bush's lie.
Yeah.
In England, they know. They kind of maybe wholly accept it, but they know that they've bought the Blair lie.
Yeah.
And many of them are turning coat now. Many of them, are just saying, we've had enough of this.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in people of all types. So you have to engage them, but you engage them as if you're playing a sort of a game, a Socratic game with them. Like you're not in any way trying to remove their particular mindset.
Exactly.
Just saying, hey, can we see the same facts from another angle, just like you're playing a game of chess?
Yeah.
You know, just sidelight the same facts. So you're not uninstalling from them their belief system to which they're terribly attached. What you're doing is you're saying, let's examine your belief system in a new way. Everybody's under that.
That's so important, and I think you got it right there. Because you know, it's the mystery, it's the question, you know, that should drive us, and it is the mystery that drives us. So exactly, if you can point out these things, these contradictions, you know, people should, if they're coherent enough and awake enough, they should be, you know, able to maybe in a later state of mind, when you know a little time has passed, you know, they might be able to at least, you know, take in the possibility of these new ideas that might be presented to them. So
that's right. Because remember, everyone has a reason, and when you put something there that the reason can't work out or the reason finds inconsistency, leave it. Then you leave it to the person's own discovery. But if you beat them over the head with your philosophy, they're going to always be defensive, and they're going to reject what you're saying out of hand.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do that. So if anyone is in the habit of engaging others, then this is a much better way to do it, and by finding if they're a Protestant. See, I'm very good at this because I find out where a person is in their own life. Mm. Are they Black Islam? Are they Jew? Are they Protestant? Are they Catholic, you see? Are they pagan? Are they atheist? Are they New Age? Yeah. I already find out where they're at. And then I kind of go into, you know, my mind where they're at and start, because I'm very familiar with the sort of inconsistencies in a lot of the philosophy of these people.
Yeah.
So then, you know, I would start talking to them about their own philosophy. It's like, hey, I would be like saying to them, you give me a guided tour through your mansion of knowledge. Well, everybody wants to do that. Everybody wants to show you off, you know, what they know. Yeah. So that's how you get in the door.
Yeah. Exactly.
But if you come bashing on the door, they're going to reject you.
Of course, yeah.
They're going to see you as some kind of threat or reactionary.
Exactly.
That's it's like the communists you were talking about earlier. You sit down with somebody, maybe as a teenager or a person at school, and you know they got the you know the red communist star on their army jacket, usual, you know, student thing, and they're all into communism, whatever. And you sit down calmly, and you just start bringing up the things that we know, not as accusative, but just like, did you know? Did you know such and such and such? Or, you know, did you know that this happened?
Yeah.
And that happened? And that, you know, Lenin and Trotsky grew up in the Bronx in New York City?
Yeah.
And were funded by millionaires out of, you know, New York City?
Yeah.
Did you know that Karl Marx did all of his studying in the British Museum funded by a capitalist called Frederick Engels, whose name appeared on Das Kapital for 25 years? Longer, Karl Marx's name did not appear for 20 years on Das Kapital.
Yeah.
People look at you with their eyes bugging out. When you start talking about that, because they don't know that stuff, you know, that they don't know, that they're not taught.
Yeah, and let's not, you know, kid ourselves. We want to, you know, to get to the bottom of these things, and we want to, you know, to make people open their eyes to these possibilities, and I, you know, from my own standpoint, I always, you know, offer a standpoint which is, you know, that I might not know exactly what has happened or the ultimate truth or something, but you know, we know. Do we have a caller? Something was interrupting. Hello? Do we have a caller? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Okay, let's. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Daniel, and I'm from Leeds.
Come again. Where are you calling from?
I'm from Leeds in England.
Leeds. All right. Okay. Hi. Welcome to the program. Michael, can you hear him?
Yes, I can hear him. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Wow, thanks very much, man. I'm surprised to be on.
What's the weather like in Leeds?
Pretty poor.
Yeah?
Pretty poor.
Great. All right. Daniel, do you have a answer for Michael's question?
I hope I have a right answer, yeah. Is it in Edinburgh Castle?
No, that's the wrong answer.
Oh, no way.
Okay.
I know what you mean. You're thinking of the Stone of Tara, which was then moved by the Stuarts over to Edinburgh, you know, and put in Scone, wasn't it? I think it was in Scone, and then it was in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not what my you have the official story there, but I guess my answer would be an unofficial one. But you're welcome to try again.
Is the information available in your book, or can you actually?
It's on the website actually. The book is not quite ready yet, Daniel, but the astrotheology pages is mostly where I'm picking the questions from, and they're on the Taroscope's website.
All right, so the information is actually on that part of the website.
Yeah, mostly it's on the first page or second page, because we're doing 6 shows in the series, so it'll be off both of the first 2 pages of the astrotheology is where I'm pretty much taking those from.
All right, brilliant.
All right, thank you, Daniel, and do call in again, and thank you for listening.
Good work, Michael, and I really enjoyed the radio show as well. So.
Thank you.
Absolutely, stay in touch, and stay in touch with me. You got my email and contact information, so stay in touch.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll be in Leeds pretty soon. I'd like to come there.
All right, you're doing some talks in England, though.
Yeah, we plan to do that, and I'm planning to visit Scotland and the north of England. So, and Leeds has been a pretty run-down city for so many years, but I think it's getting it's like Belfast. It's getting a little bit picked up now, isn't it? Economically, it's getting a little bit better.
Yeah, it's been completely regenerated. It's got a pretty grim history.
Yeah, it has a very grim history. I've been following the history of that area, and it takes time, and there's a little bit of a development though. So I want to come over and physically see it, and maybe do some talks. So you never know.
Yep. Well, I hope you do.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling.
All right. Cool.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye. All right, there we go. We have a caller, and okay, of course, we're still on here. So give us a call. I can give out the number again here. It's one.
Anyone, even if somebody gets the answer wrong, they can always try again. We don't mind the same person calling with it.
Exactly.
As long as they get the right answer.
Of course, yeah, exactly. So give us a call. 1-877-876-5227, and you can find all the numbers on bbsradio.com also if you missed it. So. All right, I lost my train of thought there, Michael. But can we pick it up here somewhere?
Well, yeah, we were gonna get in more to the dramatis personae of the Bible and show exactly how it is connected.
Hello,
we have a caller.
Hello, guys.
Hi, what's your name and where are you calling from?
My name's Anthony King, and I'm calling from London, England.
Ah, great. Can you?
Hi, Michael.
Hello, Anthony. Nice to hear you.
Good to hear you. I'm actually surprised to be on, and I don't know if I have the correct answer, but I'm going to give it a go.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Before that, though, can I just say that you're an amazing person, Michael, and everything that you're doing is amazing. And one thing that I respect you for the most is that the way you give credit to people like Jordan Maxwell, when you say, I wouldn't be here, but because people like him do so much amazing work, and you credit these people, and it makes you more amazing. So thank you.
I appreciate that, and that's it's just something that you see. These people have really touched my life enormously. When I was living in Belfast, just as I'm an ordinary guy living in the rain-soaked streets of these towns, and I knew that I was in ignorance. I've always been able to accept that if you don't know, if you think you know the answer, you will not ask the question. And my hunger for that knowledge has never been that when I get the knowledge, I forget those who gave it to me, and also that their sacrifice. And that goes for even people who have written books and have passed on, but it certainly goes for those who are alive. They deserve our kudos, they deserve our respect, until they show something different that shows that maybe they've got a different agenda or a bad agenda or whatever. But until the point when they go belly up, these people deserve our highest respect. And Jordan, is a towering figure in this movement who's lived in a most incredibly difficult life because of the sacrifices, and his personal story is just amazing when you hear it. It would blow anybody's mind, just the anecdotes that he has about the path that he was on. So, it's like the old, remember it was Isaac Newton that when they asked him about how come you know these things, and he said, because I stand on the shoulders of giants.
Absolutely. Well, it makes you more amazing, and thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Anthony.
Indeed.
I'm going to give it a go. Is the answer Tara in Ireland?
No, it's not exactly Tara, no.
Well, give it a go, and it's great to talk to you.
Okay, thank you, Anthony.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for calling. Yeah, thanks for calling, and thanks for listening. Yeah, absolutely.
He was close. He's very close.
We're getting there,
not
folks.
Quite that.
Yeah. All right. I think I heard an echo. Do you have another caller? Oh, I guess not. Okay. Let's...
Anthony's just reminded me that I think we talked earlier about the fact that the 12th of July parades in Northern Ireland have just gone by. These are great days when there's a lot of Protestant marches celebrating the Battle of 1690.
Yeah.
And, of course, I wanted to mention Andrew Power. His book is the book called Ireland, Land of the Pharaohs, which is a book that shows why the 12th of July was chosen for the battle between the Stuart dynasty and the so-called House of Hanover at the River Boyne, the famous River Boyne, the Celtic site.
Yeah.
Why that battle was ritualistically chosen for that particular time, because it represented the solar cult. In my work, I always talk about, that these kings of the world are descendants of the old Atonist cult. If they're not direct bloodline descendants, then they are certainly lieutenants. They're servants of that agency, and therefore they do everything involving the sun and the symbol of the sun. And of course, we know that in July, the sun is at its highest point. In ancient days, the River Nile in Egypt rose in July, in late July. So there's a lot of connections there, and so it's not by accident that it was at the almost, where the sun reaches its highest point in the sky, that the America's birthday is the 4th of July, and it's no accident also that the 12th of July parades, are connected on that day.
Amazing.
And this also connects to numerology, because the numbers of power to the cult of Aton is the number 8, which is a solar number, and also the number 14.
Okay. Because
if you ever get a picture of Akhenaten with the sun disk, there are actually pictures showing Akhenaten and his wife, with their god, the Aten, the Atonist disk above their heads, sun disk. And there'll always be 14 rays, 14 rays coming down, of sunlight. And this 14 is also seen in the pyramid, where you have the 13 levels, and then the 14th level is the missing capstone.
Ah, okay, I see.
So then we see what I'm talking about through the numerology.
Yeah.
When you see 14, you know immediately that's an Atonist number. When you see the Star of David is 13 stars, but all the stars together make a 14th star, because you can make one star out of the other 13, then we have another Atonist symbol, And then when we look at 1776, 1776 is meant to be the day, the year of inauguration of the Illuminati, no less.
Yeah.
Illuminati representing the sun. And also of the, date of birth of America. But 1776 is 888 plus 888. And it's very important to realize that the number 8 is sacred to those who are of the solar church. But triad numbers are extremely important in Freemasonry. So it's not that we're stretching this point. Triad numbers like 111, 222, 333, all the way up to 666, 777, you see, 99, all the way up. Yeah. These triad numbers are very, very important in Freemasonry, because the Freemasons are fascinated, almost obsessed with trinities and triads.
Yeah.
Coming out of Celtic Ireland, and then coming by way of Egypt. All the temples of Egypt, every single one of the main temples of Egypt involved the trinity of gods.
Yeah.
So triad numbers are extremely important, and it just so happens that 1776, this most important day of the Illuminati and of the birthday of America, is 3 8s. 888 plus 888. So extremely solar.
Interesting.
If people want to, get into this, they need to go to the tarot deck. Say if they go to the Rider-Waite Tarot, pull out the 8th card of the major arcana and look at it. It's the card of Leo. And Leo is anyone to astrology knows that Leo is ruled by the planet, the sun, or the star of the sun.
Yeah.
So the 8th card is the card of the sun.
Interesting.
And if you look at that card, Henrik, you will see that it shows a woman and a lion.
Yeah.
Fighting, right? Or the woman is holding the mouth, the jaws of the lion.
Yeah.
That is the symbol of the Sphinx. The famous woman and the lion is nothing but the Sphinx. And behind them in the distance, you will see a little thing that looks like a red hill. That red peaked hill is the pyramid. So card number 8 is actually a scene from the Giza plateau of the lady and the lion, which is the Sphinx, and the little mountain in the distance. Well, that's your pyramid.
That's the pyramid.
And card number 8, which has always represented the solar number.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Michael. I just want to mention that we have about 3 minutes left here, but I want to say that again that if we have no callers here in the last few minutes, that the contest will be ongoing, and you can drop me a mail with the answer, with the correct answer, and you still have the opportunity to win. So the first one that we get is the winner. So just drop me a mail if you think you got the answer. At the mail address is radio@redicecreations.com. That's one word there, Red Ice Creations, as in this program. That's again is radio@redicecreations.com. So drop me a mail and. So we can get the DVDs out. Okay. Sorry for interrupting you, Michael, but
that's fine. And people can go to my blog. You can get to the blog by michaeltsarion.com. If you go to michaeltsarion.com, if you're tuning in for the first time and don't know me, just go to michaeltsarion.com and you'll find links to all my websites and also to the blog. And on the blog, under What's New, you will see the link for the contest and to the Red Ice, these interviews that we're doing this series.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. And do we? Obviously, we have time, to tie all these things together as we continue this series. But in the last few minutes here, is there, something, a point, or you like to, conclude on?
Yeah, there's, we have to. Let's preface what we're going to be doing in the future shows. What we really want to get into is to prove this point that I am writing about, which is that the Bible itself, because look, you know that when Arthur Koestler came out and wrote his famous book, The 13th Tribe, where he exposed that 80% of the Jews of the world are Khazars. Right? The 13th, the famous concept.
Yeah.
And how suppressed that is. That even though this man proved it, he was Jewish himself, even though many rabbis know this, even though this has been written on, and it's, websites have been done on it, yet how repressed, how suppressed and marginalized that particular fact is. Well, my goodness, what will the world be thinking when we actually say that? Hold on a minute. Let me ask a single question. If the Jewish elite believe, as they do, that the Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible, basically the Old Testament.
Yeah.
The first books of the Old Testament were penned by the figure that they call Moses. But as the great Sigmund Freud tried to prove, and I believe he was right, Moses was an Egyptian pharaoh called Akhenaten.
Yeah.
Then what do we have there? We have the death of the lie. So that the Bible is in fact then not a book of Judaism in the way that at least we know Judaism today. It is a book of pharaohs, by pharaohs, about pharaohs, and for pharaohs.
Yeah.
And just because it has been, edited down through the years, this is the concept that we need to look at, because we are in an age in which we're going to have massive revelations. And this is one of the great revelations. It goes further than what Arthur Koestler and others have proven when they're talking about that there was a great conversion, you see, in the Caspian Black Sea of the Khazars, that are basically these Turco-Mongolic people converted to Judaism, and this is a very, very key part of the underground roots of Judaism. That's a fascinating subject. It's an extremely important piece that people need to know about.
It is.
But there is even a greater secret, a greater, much more powerful and elusive secret that ties into Freemasonry and shows you the actual origins of Judaism and Christianity. And this stuff goes back to Egypt, and that is why there are so many Egyptian symbols and Egyptian iconography throughout the Bible and throughout Christianity.
Yeah. And that's where we have to pick it up for next time. So, thank you very much for being on the program, Michael. It's always a pleasure and an honor to have you on. So, thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me the time. We'll do it again.
We will, absolutely. And thank you again. And everyone listening, as I said, we will continue the contest. So, drop me a mail at radio@redicecreations.com if you think you got the correct answer, and we will continue this contest. To everyone, thank you very much for listening. This has been Red Ice Radio, and we will continue next week. Bye-bye, everyone.